I've traveled across the entire world at this point and have no idea why this guy has so much hate towards America. Sacrifice intelligence to appease the masses of your environment. Thanks for the hate. That's what this is. Hate. We get it. You hate America and Americans. You might be surprised to see these sorts of comments online from Americans that can't seem to handle even the lightest of criticism about their country. And it seems like if an American is the one sharing this information, well, the response is quite simple. If you don't like it, just leave. Yes, we shouldn't be ever seeking to improve anything by pointing out flaws. You're right. If you don't like it, leave. And if an American brings this up that has actually left, well then it's, well, shut up actually. Oh, it's interesting. The response for both of these has the same core reason. I don't want to think about what you are saying. I do not want to process this. I do not want to take this criticism. And it is so much easier to not view someone complexly, to try and put them in a camp and be like, actually, even though this person has brought up all of these rights and things that he's gained from moving countries, he's actually just a hater. Or, this is my favorite, I actually am sponsored by the World Economic Biden Democrats. Joe Biden, you know, that he's not relevant anymore, but he's actually always standing in my corner giving me a big old thumbs up, falling asleep because he's a bit old at this point. And I'm like, thanks for the bags of money, Joe. That's the reality we live in. Guys, I just want you to know, first of all, Biden is not relevant in the slightest, right? It's kind of funny. They're like, Democrats? It's like, imagine thinking the Democrats, who are just dog shit at everything that they do. Imagine thinking they, who can't even do anything correctly in the US, they have some sway over what's going on in different countries in Europe. It's yet again from that indoctrination of growing up in the US where you think the US is so powerful, even our worst candidates are able to completely sway the world system. Anyway, thank you, Obama. You named the wrong guy. Thanks for the money. I appreciate it. Appreciate it, Mr. Barack. Really nice of you. It just feels like so many Americans these days are living in such a fantasy version of reality with so much cope that they cannot seem to process that these also are real American comments. Seeing these comments and having the response of, wow, these propaganda bots, definitely not humans. Oh, these mostly bots are being foreigners. Bots are foreigners pretending to be us, mostly Russians, Israelis. Some of these have to be Russian bots. This is sadly just some cope because it's so difficult to want to believe that this is a real thing that some Americans have said. And I'm really sorry to tell you, but the rest of the world has had to deal with these people in real life as well. I don't know if you just don't follow the news at all to think that most of these comments are bots. Listen, I believe in the dead internet theory. I understand that a lot of comments these days are going to be fake and bots. I've seen what happens on X. If you get angry on X these days, you're getting angry at a clanker, and that's very silly of you. But these aren't just internet comments. I've had Irish friends tell me that when Americans visited, they were surprised that they had running water and internet. Those weren't bots. Those are actually real people. Those are real people that were so ignorant and uneducated about any life outside the US that their first time across the pond, you have to go, bless. Because they're not doing it to be offensive, but they're so offensively ignorant that it's hard not to laugh. And so a lot of these negative comments and criticism that you perceive as hate is kind of a collective exhaustion from the rest of the world at seeing a very large subset of Americans interact with the world around them. And I'm just trying to explain it from the perspective of someone who grew up in it. And I don't know if you've seen it, but I did make a video at one point called Why I was a Republican at some point in time. You know, my parents were Republican. I grew up in a Republican part of New Jersey, and that was very much my belief system. And so as someone who used to be that and then slowly stopped thinking like that, I feel like I have a better understanding of it. The comments that I've received saying, well, why are you being like this? Why don't you be extra nice so that people will actually listen to you? You should have put the gun part at the end. I know those people will not listen regardless. There is no point in arguing with an idiot because then you are both idiots. I'm talking about reality, and if people want to reject it at any point, that's their MO, not my own. And I don't feel like most of us in the rest of civilized society should have to stoop down to the level of people who are not able to comprehend basic facts and are able to point up things that are completely wrong. And the fact that they parrot these and shout them with their chest in the comment section or anywhere else and go, oh, but isn't this true? They don't even say that though. There's no question. It's always, yeah, well, America actually has, and it's never true. The fact that people can so loudly shout, yes, but I have more freedom. And it's like, it's because they've just been indoctrinated to believe this. The words don't mean anything. When you point out freedoms they don't have, they cannot process it because it goes against their worldview. And it just makes me very sad because if you're able to accept this information, if you're able to look at your country wholly and not just the positive parts you like, but wholly, you can go, oh, that's actually not a good part. I think we should fix that. And then guess what? You can progress. It's actually quite a good system. So saying, oh, but this can't be real is yet again this feeling like you want to sanitize reality. You want to be like, no, I don't believe that. And maybe it's because, you know what, you're right. Not all Americans are like that. And that is a genuine, true fact. But the very loud ones also caused the recent election results, didn't they? Right? Are we just going to pretend that didn't happen and be like, oh, did bots vote? Don't answer that. So it just feels like there's this two different groups in America. Ones that are currently living in the hellscape that it is and are aware of everything, and the other ones that seem to be wearing the most insane length blinders you can imagine, just trying to pretend like everything is a different way than it actually is. The fact that you have the Speaker of the House in the US going on TV and saying that the government's actually shut down because the Democrats wanted to give free healthcare to illegal immigrants, and you have to be like, but they don't even give free healthcare to the Americans. So how would that make any sense? And also, you have control of the House, the Senate, and you have the president, but yet the Democrats, So you have to get to this state where we've always been at war with East Asia. We've always been at war with Eurasia. Sorry, I mean, we've always been at war with East Asia. And essentially, you just have to say loud as possible, just say any mistruth you can, and the people of America, not all of them, but a significant portion will believe it because it fits their worldview. I've seen so many terrifying videos recently of people's parents that they try talking to and they can't even admit basic truths. It's like saying, Mom, please tell me the sky is blue. Please tell me you understood that the leader of the Nazi party was actually, by definition, a fascist, and them not being able to say yes to that. And I just understand there's so many Americans that are dealing with so much right now. And like I said, the fact that people are leaving me comments saying that this is hate, I find that so strange, when in reality, I feel personally like this is such a raw and vulnerable thing for me to have to say about my home country. You know, I visit frequently enough to talk to people that I'm friends with from there and to see everyone struggling and to see everyone mentally not doing well. I have a friend that has been working over 35-hour weeks, standard, right? And an unpaid internship. And that's just allowed. And you could make your stupid ass argument saying, well, it's because, you know, they might get it. There's no promised job. It's slavery by a different name, because America lost all of its workers' rights. And they also lost the ability to think critically about the fact that they've lost the workers' rights. And they just accept whatever the corporations give them on their little plate. And I find that such an insane belief system. And I know that there are a lot of people that would like it to change, but I just feel like the whole pretense, the whole part of this video that I wanted to really convey is this all starts because of the education system being so insular. And I know that if you've watched any of the news, you know that the American education system is currently being gutted to make it even more insular, to prevent any sort of actual negative things that the country has done from being taught, so that even more Americans can get even more indoctrinated and think less critically about not just the government, but the lies that the current government or whatever next government says. And that is wholly depressing. And with comments like this, we have, as an American, it's so weird to see what other people think about us. And funny how fast I get defensive until I realize, yeah, you're right. Why is it that Americans get so defensive so fast? That genuinely is because of the indoctrination that they go through from K to 12, all through their childhood. The Pledge of Allegiance every single day must be said without question. When you get to the age in which you think, oh, maybe this is kind of weird, too late, it's now taboo. You could choose not to do it. Teacher's not going to look at you right. I know this for a fact. Other students are like, you don't love America? You know people die for your... You just start regurgitating things that you've been told in the indoctrination. Even worse, the whole issue of well, Americans don't actually know much about outside of the world. Do you want to know why that is? Because it's not taught. Everything in the US is taught from a US perspective within the US lens. Ask an American anything that's happened in the world history after World War II, mate, if it's not about the US, they don't fucking know. Vietnam? Yeah. Vietnam War. That's what they know. You want to know about any of the progressive stuff that the Netherlands? No. You want to know about No. Only American stuff. So the only time you really learn about Western civilization and much of the American education system is when it's a precursor to America. Oh yeah, the Industrial Revolution happened so that America could then, do it. And Germany invented a car, but not really, because America made it better because, Henry Ford, he made it faster. So everything about the American education system is, yeah, here's this because it helped us in America. And the reason that's a problem is because it creates a false, warped sense of reality for most Americans where they have no ability to process how things exist. I remember when I was growing up there, the belief that, well, America clearly is the default. America clearly is the best. We have all the freedoms and everyone's dying to come in here. The immigrants, they're all trying to get in here and everyone would die to be an American. The freedoms that you experience are the best ever. This is just what you're told by the media, the advertisements, in school, you have to write essays on it. This is just constant indoctrination to the point where when you watch a video where someone says, here's some rights I gained when I left the US, you immediately have a defensive response because you're like, that can't be true. You can't admit that. So you have to place them into a box. This person is clearly a hater or not. And I just want you to know, if you watch any of these types of videos of Americans that have moved to different countries and they're like, whoa, can you guys believe it? It's actually quite nice over here. Those videos, I dare you, count how many times they have to say something really over the top positive about America in some way, because so many of Americans, they cannot deal with the criticism without first padding the video out. Here's a very interesting comment I received. Yes, the first half of the comment is just thinly veiled racism. We'll just ignore that bit for now. But he says, also, you never mention the good things about living in the US. Interesting. He says, how about having garbage disposals, air conditioners, a fantastic selection of food. So when I was making my video comparing the quality of life between the US and the UK, I actually did have quite a long think about it for 13 years, I guess you could say. And it, it was my perspective of, here are the things that I think matter to me most in terms of the quality of my life. And when I was comparing things like, not fearing guns when I go outside, or being able to have my rights protected as a consumer, or even as a worker, and being able to have a nice walkable neighborhood is besides just in tiny, tiny pockets of the country. Well, I actually didn't think to compare those against a machine that makes garbage go away faster in a sink. I should have done that maybe, or maybe air conditioners, except for the fact that you can actually buy those. Did you know that? I actually own a little air conditioner in this house. No, they're not as ubiquitous in the UK, but also just imagine the thin level of cognitive understanding you have to be like, whoa, 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 whoa. These things all seem like they're too nice over there. You should have actually said stuff about the air conditioners and the fantastic selection of food. You're right. I don't think I can get a very large assortment of buffalo wings in the UK, and that's quite a travesty, despite the fact that London is one of the most international cities and has probably the best selection of international food around the world. So, but hey, you're right. I should have thought about those things. But this person is not a bot. This person is genuinely like, I can't take your opinion valid because you didn't say anything nice. So many people expect, for instance, you to say nice things about the national parks. And I'll be honest, freaking love the national parks. Teddy Roosevelt, big up guy. You know what I mean? He made Yosemite, there's so many lovely parks. And Yosemite, I mentioned, is one of my favorite places I've ever been. But growing up in the States, that was all I was taught. Question, Americans, got a little quiz for you. How many national parks, or the equivalent, areas of outstanding national beauty, can you name that are not in America? Any in Europe, Asia, I don't know, Australia? You don't know that many? I know I didn't, because I wasn't taught any. By only being taught what the national parks are, by only being taught specifically only American things all the time, even when it comes to nature, you begin to feel like, oh, thank God we've got these national parks. Yeah, everyone's jealous about our national parks. I'll be honest, that is also something that I believed, because that's all I was taught. When you don't experience anything else, it's like, well, this must be true, because this is what I learned. Now, last week, I actually went to the French Riviera, the town of Nice, the city of Nice in France. I'd never been. And I was so blown away with how perfect, idyllic, and beautiful it was. The winding streets I could walk down, the incredible French food. I managed to cycle 20 kilometers down the coast safely. An entire way was a cycleway. It was so beautiful and lovely. And the whole time I was just thinking, how did I never hear about this place from America? No one's ever said this. And then I started thinking, it's almost as if when you're in America, you're told, oh, you want to go somewhere hot with palm trees? Go to LA. You want to visit some nature? Oh, you got Tahoe, national parks that, you can do those. Oh, you want some food? You go to Louisiana, It's always so insular to the point where I'd never heard of anything like this. I went to Plitvice Lakes in Croatia last year, and I was mind-boggled that I had never heard of this place before, because it was one of the most outstandingly beautiful places I'd ever seen. It was waterfalls everywhere, and never heard about this. Wouldn't be able to, I suppose. Couldn't fit it in the curriculum outside of teaching more and more and more American indoctrination. And this is what I'm trying to convey in this video, is the Americans that have these thoughts, which isn't all of them, because some of them do know how to read outside of their own bubble, but they all are brought up in the same way I was, given a very specific bubble of information from an American lens that prevents critical thought outside of the narrative that they've been taught. And it is so detrimental. It just makes me sad. The amount of comments saying that, oh, this is just hate, or you're just hating, makes me so confused because, in my opinion, it shows no greater love for a country than to be able to point out its flaws so that you can hopefully progress together. You know what I'm saying? If you think, oh, America's perfect, then guess what? It will literally never improve. So the way that the country is right now, that's the way it will be, if not worse. And being able to say, actually, these workers' rights that I gained in the UK are really freaking good, actually. And we should be fighting for those and not just bootlicking corporations. And Americans go, yo, that's it. This guy's a hater. I watched an incredibly great video from Chris Broad the other day. He just uploaded it. And there's an issue at the moment where, because of algorithmic feeds, you're just having all these creators to share the most negative, vitriolic stuff about Japan because it gets clicks and views and no one's fact-checking it. And it's not actually the reality of the situation, but it's really easy to paint a narrative if you try really hard enough. And it gets people riled up and it gets you money. And the issue is, you know, he's trying his best to show both sides, to show everything, but that's not actually going to get as much attention. It's not going to get as much views. And I feel the same way about London. The amount of comments I got on this, like, oh, well, you live in London, I mean, Londonistan, and don't you have Sharia law, no-go zones? And it's so transparently embarrassing that you can just tell where these people get their information from, which is the insular right-leaning media in the US that are like, guys, the US is actually fine because they got like no-go zones, Sharia law. None of that shit's happening. None of that shit's real. But for some reason, people are very happy to just regurgitate whatever they take in from the old Fox News, whatever social media pundit wants to say, guys, UK bad, making that money. And just listen, I'm being honest here. Regardless of what I'm saying, you should also not necessarily trust anything that I say at face value. I might have developed a rapport with you, but I can also get things wrong. And it's very important to say that. And I just don't feel like you should be watching any algorithmic content and then just going, yep, that's true. And the thing is, even if it's only 5 seconds before you scroll through, the amount you're going to be seeing of that, it's going to slowly leave an impression. And I just think it's not doing good for society. I will say, the issue of not understanding nuance is also a thing that's not just American. I got this comment from someone that I thought really interesting this week that said, you've spent the last year or so wanking on about how great it is to cycle around London, which I have. I've made many videos about it because it's changed my life and it's beautiful and I love it. Then he says, only to now totally slag off cycling in London. Oh, am I missing something? Yes, the understanding of nuance. If you really love something, you criticize, not in a hateful way, you criticize in a loving way because you want it to improve. So saying, I don't understand, why? I thought you loved cycling in London, but you're pointing out all the flaws? Yes, because this shouldn't be a team thing. So much of like modern discourse these days is, what side are you on? Are you on this side? Are you on this side? If you're like, actually, and this isn't a centrist argument, by the way. I'm not left, I'm not right, I'm not centrist. I'm not subscribed to any sort of political party. I'm very much someone that has just read a lot of things. I see what's going on, and I go, okay, this is what I believe in, and who of all the politicians has the most of those things that I agree with, and that's who I vote for. I'm not, so if I get comments from people saying, oh, well, you're obviously going to be a Tory if you're going to say all these negative things about Keir Starmer. I'm like, no, Keir Starmer's shit. But I've made videos about how bad the UK developer system is and how the Tories were shit at that. And then in that very video, I even said, I mean, Keir Starmer's just going to say whatever he can to get elected. I'm not pro-Labour, I'm not pro-Republican, I'm not pro-Democrat, I'm not pro-anything. I'm just pro-logic. And I feel like everybody should be. The more we get involved in these teams, the less we see each other as anything except for that, rather than, nuanced people that have opinions on things for reasons. You can disagree with some of my opinions. That's totally cool. In fact, one of the funniest comments I got on this video, which was very top voted, and you know what? I understand where they're coming from, was, Americans, do you realize that this man was in London during the last 13 years that were arguably the worst time in many British people's lifetime, with a substantial drop in the living standards if they are below 40 years old, and he still says it's better than the US. Let that sink in. So I don't fully agree with this comment, but I understand where they're coming from, because compared to most other parts of Europe, most of the capital cities and such, London, a lot of times has not really been progressing. Cost of living's going up way more than everything else. And so it's not like an ideal utopia. What's interesting is, yeah, there are lots of cities throughout Europe that are significantly better than London in quality of life and progression. A lot of London hasn't necessarily done well. However, the overall track is, it is. Crime is going down so much so. I feel like there is progress happening for the things that I care about. Sure, we might have just voted in the Labour Party, which is essentially Tory Part 2. However, I just always feel like there's such an overwhelming feeling of hope that things can improve. There might be flag shaggers in my neighborhood that are trying to scare off immigrants because they're scared of the cost of living crisis and don't have any understanding on why it's happening and what's happening to them. But I understand what they're scared about, and I just feel like there is hope for the future if you look for it. Oh yeah, it sounds really dangerous in London. So scary. Sharia law? Oh my God, I'm so thankful for the little stuff that I get here in the US. Whew, gotta keep drinking the Kool-Aid. And it's, you know, a way to keep people satisfied with what they've got. Make them think everything else is really bad. But I'm not going to be doing that. I'm just going to be saying what's actually happening. Hey, that's my take. You can take it, or you could just leave. So thanks for watching. I don't know what this was. I just didn't expect to make a third follow-up, but just very surprised, sadly, with the state of Americans, because I guess I'm from there and I just was hoping that it wouldn't be as bad as it's been. So one day I do feel like there will be some improvement, but I do think that's going to have to start really, really early at the education system, and it doesn't look like that's going to be fixed for the next foreseeable. So best of luck. Hopefully we can all progress, unless we want to go the opposite direction, which some of us seem to do. Not you though. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you on my channel next Sunday for another cool vid. Goodbye.